From sunny Southern California, we bring you Meet Bridget, a podcast for building confident communication and female badassery. We spotlight women who have bridged the gaps in their lives by building strong relationships and speaking their teenage dreams into reality.
Bring it on, baby!
What we've got here is failure to communicate.
Welcome back to Meet Bridget Season 5. I'm Asha Gabriel, and I co-host this show alongside my best friend, Kishia Rosenberg. Our show is a giant library of career and life path options for young women to relate to by sharing the honest and unfiltered teenage stories of a diverse array of successful women. We believe that confidence starts with self-trust and that it grows through authentic community. Tapping back into our formative years makes this Meet Bridget community a place where women of all ages and stages can connect on common ground. Today, I am so excited for you to meet Moni Walsh. Moni is a passionate advocate for health, wellness, and movement. As a multi-hyphenate athlete, mother, professional chef, her journey has not been linear or traditional, and we're so excited to get into it today. You may have seen her face and athletic prowess plastered on billboards and bus stops as part of the Nike Women's Marathon Project. You might also recognize her from Instagram, sharing her motherhood journey and her incredible from-scratch recipes. Today, you can find Moni teaching the full routine classes in Southern California and heading up her creative UGC agency, Female Generated Content. Moni, I'm so happy to have you here today. Moni and I have been friends for a long time too, and she has really just significantly impacted me in multiple times. I would love to share that when many of our listeners know that I went through thyroid cancer, and during that time, Moni just literally came out into my life and she just texted me. She's like, hey, do you want to go for a walk? Like, hey, what are you doing today? And I felt like she just knew the exact way to show up as a friend. And she got me moving too, which was so great. So I'm honored to have you here, Moni, today, and welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. I'm so grateful to be here, and it really does feel like a full circle moment for us.
I have loved watching your journey recently because you did take off, was it 5 years basically, to fully focus on motherhood. She has a beautiful little girl. And during that time would share content about motherhood. Her little lunches for her daughter, just cooking in general. Moni has experience as a professional chef among the million things that she's done in addition to that. But then more recently has really been pouring energy into this career revival. She is teaching at the Full Routine, which, if you're not familiar, is a very unique fitness studio down here in Southern California. I'll let her describe the theory of movement, but she's teaching all the time. Her classes have a cult following, and she's recently founded her own user-generated content agency. So Moni, tell us a little bit about what you're doing right now and what it means to you.
Yeah, so I recently started my journey with the Full Routine, which is its very own method created by our founder, Cassie. So it's not mat Pilates, it's called TFR mat. And we basically start with 3 arms movements standing up. Then we go down to the floor for 4 Pilates routines. And then we go into 8 count compounded movements. And it's all to the beat of the music. And it's honestly just electric. I took my first class. I was invited through our mutual friend, Brienne, on June 1st. And I remember driving down to meet Brienne and just, listening to music and thinking I really want to call in new energy into my life career-wise. I was, kind of praying at the time and saying my heart is open. I want to begin. I'm making the conscious choice to now pour into career after taking the 5 years off. And I took the class and I immediately fell in love with the method. And the instructor, Ashley, at the end of class announced that they were looking for instructors in South Bay. And I
Wow.
thought that was so interesting
What are
because
the odds?
I drove an hour first thing in the morning from South Bay to take this class with Brienne. And you know, Brienne, she's such an energetic connector. So it
Yes.
just felt so synergistic how it all happened. And I immediately raised my hand and I'm like, I'm from South Bay. And it was funny when I took the class, in true fashion of my personality, I chose the front and center spot.
Of course.
Every workout class, I choose like front and center. So,
Yes.
and yeah, it was just so fun. And when they opened up the auditions, I was very nervous and hesitant because I had never taught group fitness before. I've
Mhm.
taught personals like yoga, personal training, small groups, but in a big setting where, you know, our max capacity is 23 people. It was brand new to me and I had a little bit of doubt going into it, but I pushed through and I became an instructor. I taught my first class July 14th.
Oh
So
my
about a
gosh.
month later,
Basically, right after, what are the odds for people who might be listening from other areas and might not realize kind of like follow the story? So the full routine, the founder is from down here in Newport Beach, which is about an hour drive to where Moni lives in the South Bay, which is kind of west of Los Angeles, right? Southwest, I guess. So for her to have driven down here to where it was started and then be so connected immediately, I think that really speaks to the power of like when you set your mind towards something, like really, it doesn't even have to be specific, but it's like, hey, I'm going to be paying attention right now. This is what I'm looking for. I want career that is going to be suited to me and my interests and what I can bring and show up for. I really do believe that God or the universe or whatever you call that force responds with opportunity if you're listening. I think that's such
it
a cool
does.
story.
And I was on the wait list. I wasn't even a guaranteed spot, but I made the choice like no matter what, I'm going to show up and try to get in there because I wanted to connect with Brienne and I wanted to start momentum.
Yes.
And, so I'm happy that I did that because it changed my life.
When I feel like you and I have definitely connected over um, the power of movement and like just getting into your body if you're trying to like change some energy or you're feeling unsettled, like there is really nothing like physical movement and literally just like feeling. I mean, especially movement like this, which is it's multi-directional. You're in different planes. You're working your whole body. You're also working your, mental following of the choreography and everything. It's such a great way to just get really present and into the moment where you
Yeah.
are.
And
Um,
we work through things through movement.
mhm,
We store energy in our bodies and through movement we work through them and release them. And
mhm.
that's kind of what I've found throughout my life is every time I arrive at the mat, at the track, at the field, I leave more inspired with more belief in myself and feeling more powerful.
I love that you mentioned Brienne. So we had Brienne on the podcast recently. I was looking down because I was like, I want to her episode is episode 140 if you're interested. I think it's always fun. People like to kind of like trace people's friendship
Of
circles
course.
and everything. But Moni actually gave me Brienne's information. Back in the day, we were hosting, our live workshop events with teen girls in LA. And I was talking with Moni. I'm like, I need somebody to lead a meditation. I think it was for our Microsoft events. And she was like, you really should have my friend Brienne come. And we just instantly connected. And I think she just understood what we were looking for. We're like, I really believe in the power of breath and mindfulness to like get us present in our bodies, but also to eliminate some of the like weird stuff that we have when we're around other people. Sometimes like you walk into a room and everybody's bringing different energy. Were you late today? Did you have a fight before you got there? Like, are you stressed about a deadline? And to come into a space and have like that moment of connection and a restart was so important to all of our events that we have hosted and continue to host. And
Yeah, and
Brienne just
Brienne's
has that.
very special.
She's like if you've watched her episode, she also has these like piercing, like blue-green eyes. She just is one of those people where it's like, I will listen to whatever you say.
100%. And her energy, like she's
Yeah.
just, she holds space really
Yeah.
well. She makes you feel seen, supported. She connects with you. And she's a very special woman.
Well, I can see why the two of you have been friends for a long time too, because I do see a lot of parallels in your drive, your personal drive, but also some of your, backstory. And I'm excited to get into that today because I feel like on the surface, if you were to go to Moni's Instagram and even scroll through what she's doing right now and how like inspirational she is, she's been sharing clips from the full routine where I think this is probably at like the climax of the class, but when you're really like giving everybody a pep talk, and it's so moving and powerful because you're moving while you're doing it. But we've all had those moments. Like a fitness class is such an opportunity to like restart, and it's like the perfect time to hear those words and leave feeling completely different. If you look at her and you look at like these beautiful recipes she's making and her gorgeous family life, you might assume like this is a person that has just always like had things together or has had like a very like linear and organized life. And from what I know about you personally, and I'm excited to get into, it hasn't been totally linear for
Not at
you.
all.
You have mentioned that you you have experience in like very competitive athletics. And then now you're in this space of like group fitness, which is very different. Can you kind of talk about like the period of your life where you were playing a lot of sports in all different categories and how that kind of relates to what you're doing now?
Yeah, I mean, sport truly saved my life. I had a very, I don't want to say tumultuous childhood, but I struggled in my childhood years for sure, especially in middle school, high school. And the one thing that I think grounded me and made me truly believe that I could create a better life for myself was sports. I excelled in sports, and not only was it about excelling, but it was about the energy that I was able to tap into through movement, whether it was soccer or sprinting. And it changed my life. It changed my confidence that I had in myself. I maybe didn't have the foundation of confidence or a healthy mindset from my upbringing, and sports really gave me that foundation. And after I hung up my cleats when I was like 20 years old, I turned to group fitness, and I found that same key component that I had through sports in group fitness. And I pursued all sorts of group fitness. I got really into yoga, Muay Thai kickboxing, weightlifting, everything. And so, yeah.
I think that's so cool. And as you're speaking, what comes to mind for me is this user generated content agency that you are now opening and heading up and using your talents for. And it is sort of it's similar and then it has that like team sport kind of feel,
Yes.
having that authenticity and energy behind, what you're building. Can you tell us a little bit about that and how that's playing into what you're doing and building between, leading classes and everything? What has that meant to you and where is that coming from?
Yeah. So I think like merging the two, like from sport, it was about me. Then
Mm-hmm.
now moving into group fitness and teaching group fitness, my goal is truly to connect with others. Like I arrive 30 minutes before my class starts so I can greet everyone, get to know their names, check them in. I really try to have a moment of connection with each person who takes my class. Is it your first time taking my class? I'm so grateful that we get to do this together today. What's your name? Like, do you live in the area? I want to get to know each person and have a moment with them. And truly, like, why I teach group fitness is for that connection, for that community connection, for that impact, because of how it's impacted my life in like some of the darkest times that I've been through. And through that community connection, this idea of this agency came to mind. How can I connect more women to each other through networking, but also give them more opportunities? And I do have, I've built my network over the years to be connected to a lot of brands. And so I'm kind of like leveraging those relationships and bringing them and connecting them to other women, and trying to do that kind of in a group setting where we can all work together and grow. And, I get really excited when I meet new people. I'm a people person. And I think like throughout my life, that one aspect of like being a people person, loving to connect with other people, I'm very outgoing, using that part of my personality with my agency to just help other women and connect people.
I feel like you have this incredibly resourceful personality trait too. You have like done such a variety of things that, I think combining your just want and need to connect with people and find a way to like help them and give them opportunity. You've like combined that with, okay, but then what do I have? Okay, I have these existing brand relationships based on modeling or chefing or all these different like roles that you fulfilled in the past, and then being like, well, here's what I have and here's how I can use it to create community and uplift people. And I think that that's so empowering, especially for anybody who has had a nonlinear career path, someone who's maybe had a pause in their career for whatever reason, realizing that, opportunity can be created out of anything, and
Truly.
particularly when you're able to find or create community, those opportunities can multiply. So I think it's so inspiring to hear that you're honestly just you've taken inventory of like, okay, where am I now? What do I have access to? What are my strengths? And then like, what is my heart wanting to do? Like, what is the function of my work? And it's
Yeah.
really
And
just uplifting
my
people.
heart truly wants to connect people. Like, I am a connector. If anybody in my presence says, "Oh, I'm trying to do this," I'm immediately going through my brain, like, who can I connect this person with to help them on that path? Whether it be Brienne with you or friends with, brands. Like, I want to connect. Even if there's no intention other than connection,
Yeah.
truly.
Well, and it's so interesting that it can be as simple as that for a young person or a person mid-career that wants to make a change. I think that's an interesting point to make for anyone that's kind of in a agency capacity. Like if you're looking to be an agent, like, I mean, that could be an agent in like a talent agency. It could be an agent, a real estate agent, an insurance agent. I mean, there's so many of those roles, but really agency in that agent role means that you are a people person, that you like to make connections or connections for yourself, but then also connecting other people. And I think that's a good thing for someone that's exploring career paths to realize, like, do you have that quality? It might open up this range of career paths for you.
Of course. Yeah.
So have you always been that way, or where do you think that
No,
personality trait has come from?
I've always been very outgoing, but I think when I was younger, I didn't have that much confidence in myself. I didn't really like myself that much. You know how it is, like when you're really young and you're trying to figure out who you are, and you're trying to give yourself permission to shine. So I think I developed that, especially in my adult years. The more I felt comfortable in my own skin, grounded in myself. And I think like the one missing component to really harness that part of myself, honestly, was finding my sobriety, which is like very interesting. But this December, I'll be 3 years sober.
Wow.
And, I found substances and alcohol when I was very young to honestly just regulate my nervous system in social settings, because I would get so nervous, have social anxiety. And, I started drinking really young, and it definitely poisoned my path and like my self-perception, my confidence, all of those things. So now that I've found sobriety, have taken a pause from career, and have like really immersed myself in motherhood and grounding myself and figuring out who I am, I feel like I'm more powerful than ever, like to communicate to others and connect others with intention now. Because before, I feel like I kind of was just winging it. And
Yeah.
now I feel very grounded and confident. And I think that was truly like the missing component that kind of set my path on the right path.
Well, congratulations. I think that's a
Thank
really
you.
big accomplishment. And I think it takes a level of self-awareness to acknowledge something that is clouding your confidence,
Of course.
your vision, your understanding of yourself, and to remove it, and that could be substances or alcohol for some people. It could be a toxic relationship for someone else. It could be negative self-talk that you're addicted to. But to really acknowledge and then deliberately, remove something to create more clarity for yourself, I think is a really just a very big accomplishment. We pursue careers, and I think when we're young, it's like, okay, like what are the guideposts for a successful career? Oh, making a ton of money or having like a big CEO role or something like that, or winning a bunch of awards. But I think it's so important to also acknowledge these guideposts because that's the deepest part of your career, right? Like who are you, and what does success look like for you? And I think that to add your sobriety to that list of successes um, is so significant. So I'd love to take it like as far back as you can remember. Can you paint the picture of you as a little girl, how you grew up, just as early as you can remember?
Yeah, I mean, I think like a key component here is my mom was a teenage mom. She had my brother at 15 and me at 18.
Wow.
So if you consider like what her energy state, her mental, emotional state was while carrying both pregnancies, she didn't have a regulated nervous system. She didn't have a lot of support. She was in a really tumultuous time in her life, carrying both my brother and I through those pregnancies. And we do inherit our mother's nervous system. Furthermore, you know, when you're a mom in those really early years, let's say 1 to 4 years old, we're now learning how to behave in the world. Our mothers regulate our nervous system. We're learning by example. My mom was a single mom. She was a teenage mom. She did the very best she could with the resources she had at the time, the knowledge she had at the time. And with that being said, you know, it was hard. It was hard. My biological father was very abusive. And, you know, by the grace of God, my mom was able to get us out of that situation. And she chose to do it on her own.
Wow.
We've been estranged from my biological father from that moment. So I think I was like 1 or 2 years old. My
Wow.
mom met my now adoptive father when I was 6 years old. He ended up adopting my brother and I. And, you know, my brother's 3 years older than me. So we had very different childhoods. We grew up in the same house, but we had very different childhoods. He has way more memories than I did.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, you know, I see it in my daughter now. She's 4 and she's so aware. And like, I've seen how my husband and I's parenting style has shaped her. And so you can imagine, you know, my brother being shaped by that, me being shaped by that in those very early years when it was just me, my mom, and my brother.
Yeah.
And, you know, she did the best she could, and I've forgiven her, but I did carry a lot of resentment throughout my life, not knowing the choices she had. I judged her based on, you know, what I saw. But now, as a 34-year-old woman with a child, I now have so much love and forgiveness for her because I know how hard it is.
Yeah.
It's
I
so
mean,
hard.
it's so wild. I feel like even I think both of us had children at a point in our lives where we felt pretty like I felt confident. I was like, I'm ready to be a mom,
Yeah, me too.
and not everybody has that path, where they're like, I'm ready, let's go. But
Yeah.
even then, in the path of having two young children, I can't count on my hands the number of times I've been like, whoa, like I really did not handle that well. Or like
Yeah.
that brought
All the
out a
time.
side of me that is like very much an unhealed child still. And I'm like, I'm in my 30s and it's still incredibly hard. And I had a very positive, deliberate mother to me, and it's still hard. Like I feel like motherhood brings you right back to like your core issues and your core sensitivities, and it just brings them all out on the table, and you're looking at it right in your face, and that thing needs you, to show up in the best way you can. So I can only imagine, I mean, because when you're young, you don't know the other types of mothers you could have or the other
Yeah.
types of parents you could have. So becoming a mother yourself and then, having this choice to be like, okay, this was how I was parented and this is how it affected me. To do the work of making some shifts mindfully in the way that you're parenting is such new territory. It's wild.
And we don't realize that, like, my mom was 18 when she had me, right? So she was
Mhm.
in her young 20s when we don't realize, like, oh, this is her first time being a human being. This is
Yes.
her first time
Her brain is still
living.
growing and forming.
Yeah.
like,
Like,
like
she's just
she was a
she's just a
child
girl.
actually by
Yeah.
law when she had her first child,
Yeah. And she's just a girl going through life doing her
Yeah.
best.
Yeah.
And when I was in my 20s, I still hadn't done the self-work to
Yes.
find that space within me to have that grace for her. But
Mhm.
now I definitely do. And when you're young and you're acting out, that's not even on your brain
No.
that you can have that healing and that growth and connection to that part of your parents that
I
really
feel
did just the best they could with the resources
yes.
and knowledge they had.
I feel like that has been one of the greatest gifts of the experience of motherhood is this like new light in which I see my own parents.
Yeah.
Like you have so much it's a little uncomfortable at first because it's like, "Oh my gosh, wait, they weren't like the end all be all. They weren't like they didn't like have everything figured out. Like they were just people just like I'm just a person right now making mistakes and being like, I don't know, let's like try this, or like I think this is the best way and that's how we should go about it." They're still growing and doing their best too. I think that perspective is so eye-opening and there's just so much humanity in it.
Yeah. And like, my mom had childhood trauma of her own. She had a very difficult childhood.
Mm.
And that's also a component. It's epigenetics, it's generational trauma. And I
Yeah.
truly believe that, God has put me on this path to break the cycle. And I have broken the cycle, whether it be, sobriety. I'm reaching 3 years of that. Substance abuse has been in my family for generations, and it ends with me. It ends. It will not continue from here at all. I will not set that example for my child. And just taking it back to the way my mother parented us, she was a child herself. And so, the discipline wasn't there. There was a lot of yelling because she had an unregulated nervous system. And, maybe she didn't make certain decisions with the right perspective. So when we were young, we were dropped off at, whether it was like family members' houses or friends' houses to be cared for. And they weren't the safest environments for us. And, I think that some of those experiences that I went through were gifts, even though at the time they didn't feel like gifts. I know they're gifts because now I am a better mother because of those experiences. Now I am more watchful of my child and, I fiercely protect her. And that's a gift. Did I see it that way at the time? Absolutely not. But now I do.
Do you feel comfortable sharing like in what ways you didn't feel safe in those settings?
Yeah, we were around a lot of other kids. And as you know, like you cannot control how other kids are parented or who goes into those homes or how those kids behave. And unfortunately, I don't know if even the right term is molested if it's from a child that's only 2 or 3 years older than you. But, I've taken courses now as a mother about how to protect your child from predators. And one of the components in those courses are about how to protect your child from other children. Whether it be now in the age of technology, porn is so accessible, whether it be your child is shown porn or like something inappropriate on YouTube or touched inappropriately. And I was around kids who were of similar age but older, who, would touch me inappropriately, which changed my brain. It
Yeah.
changed my brain. Once that innocent part of you is gone, it's gone. And, that was really hard for me to process at that age. It changed me. And I also kept it a secret. I
Yeah.
didn't feel safe telling an adult. And it was a really tough situation. And, not until I was in my 20s was I comfortable speaking about it and healing that part of myself. But it definitely changes the innocence aspect of childhood. It robs you of your childhood, and the course of your life changes in that moment. You grow up really quick.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so sorry from the bottom of my heart that you had to experience that as a child. I do think it's so important to note that, usually when we think about like, oh, like, the risks of sending your kids on sleepovers and stuff, you're always thinking like, oh, is there an uncle in the house or an adult that's abusing? And we don't always acknowledge that it's like, because we don't obviously like, we're not prosecuting 6-year-olds, that are touching their friends inappropriately, but it's like there that that is still trauma, and on top of that, to have that experience, and I think so many children go through this of being like, I can't tell anyone because then like
You'll get in trouble.
child brain is like, I'm gonna somehow get in trouble for this, or did I somehow make it happen to me?
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, no, then if I share this with the people that are supposed to love me, will they love me anymore? It's really what's going on under the surface is that level of like shame for the fact that you allowed this to happen to yourself. And it's like you're a child, like you're not responsible for what happens to you. You're supposed to be protected and cared for.
And I really try to have those conversations with my daughter where it's like, you can tell me anything. I am your safe space. You are never going to be in trouble. You're not going to be in trouble. Even with, we act out certain scenarios, and it's just, I think it's really, really important to have those conversations with your children, especially when they're young. And even just like knowing that you can fight back as a child, right? Because we're
Yes.
told like, don't hit or you're going to be in trouble. But there are times when maybe hitting is appropriate. Maybe
Right.
pushing someone off you is appropriate. And at that time, when you're a child, you're like, oh, I'm not allowed to do that, or I'm going
Right.
to get in
I can't
trouble. Like
push.
just
I can't
conversations like
scream,
that. Yeah. But you acting those out with your children, like if XYZ happens, if this person does this, you hit, you fight, you scream, you get an adult, and you
Yeah.
tell anyone, you tell me, and you won't be in trouble.
And it's so interesting because so I have a 5 and a 3-year-old, and I've read about a lot of this stuff, and I'm always looking for kind of like just statements, like affirmations that I can give them. We usually do the same ones every single night, but I always end with, I love you no matter what. And I try to explain that to them. Like there is no one thing you could do in your life that would make you lose my love for you, and I say that in a variety of ways, but it's like, I think that it's so important to like give them that feeling because I don't know, I was incredibly loved by my parents, but I don't know if I was ever told that specifically. And I think that I'm like, look at my 3 I think I started this when they were like 1, honestly, like little babies,
Yeah,
maybe even before. And I'm like, in my mind, I'm like, they don't understand this, but I'm like, but some unconscious
they
part of
do.
them is absorbing that, even if it's just the words and they don't know what the words mean yet. The words are imprinted in their mind. And sometimes I have them say it to me,
Of
so
course.
that
We do
like they're repeating.
affirmations too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I always tell my daughter, like, you cannot earn my love. It's not
Yes.
earned. It is a part of you
Yeah.
forever. There's nothing on this in this world that you could do that would change that.
You are talking a little bit about, generational trauma and kind of cycle breaking. And it's so clear that you've done that, in your choices and in the way you're choosing to mother. And it was interesting when you were talking about your mom, and how she had had a traumatic childhood. Um, but when you mentioned that she managed to get you and your brother out of the situation with your biological father, you know, I'm hearing like still you had trauma in your childhood, but what an incredible cycle breaking choice for her to make, which
Absolutely.
it seems like her parents before maybe didn't weren't able to make that. So it's like each generation, and I'm sure I think about this all the time. I'm like, what are the things that my kids are going to be like? I love my mom. She did her best, but I'm not going to do X, Y, and Z that she did. I'm sure I know my kids are going
No
to have
one
that.
escapes childhood
You know?
unscathed. No
Yeah.
one escapes unscathed. I yell at my daughter sometimes. I lose it.
Yeah.
You know, eh, she's
It's
going to have
almost
her own set of
impossible.
trauma.
Well, and it's like if you go like the job of being a parent, I'm like, you are responsible. You need to co-regulate your kids. Like that is what we do in the
100%.
beginning. But when you're spending as an adult, when you're spending all of your time being a safe container for their emotions, and if you don't have a container for your emotions, like really strong and practiced, your emotions boil over too. And I think that I try to tell myself, I'm like, it is important for them to see me dysregulated too. And
Yeah.
then to see
And
what
then
I do
repair.
after that and come back and repair and
Mhm.
share ideas like, wow, I could have taken some deep breaths, or and explicitly talking about like, here's what I think I did maybe the wrong choice there and like what I could have done next time. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't have yelled at you.
Yeah. And, I did this practice with my daughter where I say, let me help you calm down.
Mm,
And we do a breath technique where it's like, smell the flower, blow the candle. And we
yes.
do it like 8 times. And then sometimes when I lose my
Yeah.
mind, she's like, let me help you calm down. And I'm like, okay,
Sure.
please help me. And then she'll be like, smell the flower. And I'm like,
Yeah.
thank you. But they're always listening. And
Oh,
I've,
so beautiful.
like you, I've been talking to her like that since she was a baby. So
It's so beautiful. You've also mentioned, so you were adopted by, you know, your true father,
yeah,
when you were
my
6.
dad.
So you were 6 years old, right? So
Yeah,
you're old enough to emotionally experience that,
of
right? And
course. Yeah.
remember the difference between what was there and what came in. Can
Yeah.
you talk a little bit about how that relationship impacted your growth from 6 into your adolescence?
Yeah, I mean, my dad is amazing. He's a sweetheart and he's just a good man. He's a really good man. He's grounded. He works hard. He's very simple, and he really stepped in and became the disciplinary. And had he not done that, I don't know where I would be truly.
Mm,
My mom was had a difficult time setting boundaries, and children need boundaries. Children
yeah.
need structure, children need boundaries, and so that partnership really rounded out what was needed. Now, did it happen right away? No. But, you know, around middle school I was getting into a lot of trouble. And like me as you know me today, I was such a troubled child in middle school and high school. I got into so much trouble at school with the law, with substances. I mean, that's like, we could do a whole podcast on all of that, like a
Yeah.
lot. And, it was a really, really hard time. It was a really hard time for me. And he really, at one point, when things got out of hand, I even ran away from home in middle school for a whole week. So,
Wow. Where did you
like,
go?
to a friend's house,
Yeah.
that my
Understand.
parents didn't know existed,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I hid. And,
Yeah.
it was part of what I was going through, how I didn't feel like I had a place to turn to within my family unit. And then just, things that were kind of going on through home at that time. My brother got kicked out of the house, for his own things. And I just had a really, really hard time. And
Yeah.
towards the end of middle school, my dad put his foot down and he was like, "You're grounded, like forever."
Yeah.
And that really helped me. Like, it
Yeah.
really
You're like,
helped me.
thank you. I've been wanting someone to do that.
Yeah. And so I couldn't do
Subconsciously,
anything.
probably.
Literally, like my
Yeah.
freshman year of high school, like I couldn't go to prom, I couldn't do anything. And he made sure to get off work and like pick me up and bring me right home. Like I was grounded until the end of time at that point. And I turned
Yeah.
my life around
Yeah.
completely. And like realizing that going to college and excelling in school was kind of like my ticket out, because I wanted to get away from
Yeah.
all of it, from my family, from my upbringing, from my childhood, from,
Yeah.
just everything that I had damaged to that point, I was like, I'm ready to like get away and basically like pick up the basket, turn it upside down, shake it, and see what's actually mine and
Yeah.
what's actually, you know,
It's
from my
baggage. Dirty
what's
laundry.
exactly like what is this baggage, you know?
Yeah.
Like a lot of it you're carrying from like your environment. And
Hmm.
so not until I was able to get away was I really able to start my healing journey. But my
Yeah.
dad truly helped change the trajectory of my brother and I's life. Truly.
That's so incredible. And it's like another thing that like when you become a parent, you realize you're like, oh, the gift of boundaries and structure and logic, it's just guideposts, that when you're a kid, it's so like you see it as like, "Ah, I hate you, like why are you like trying to ruin my life and all of this stuff,
Yeah.
because that's what our brains are just going through. But then to see it in another light when you get older and you realize you have that responsibility to your children, it
Yeah, and
is
like
like
my
such a
mom was
battle.
like my friend, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? She constantly tried to be my friend, and like that's not what your child needs. They
Yeah.
need a strong leader
Yeah.
and someone who sets those boundaries. And like I see it with my daughter, like if I let her stay up all night and watch TV and eat snacks, like she would do that 100%,
Yeah.
but like, no,
Yeah. You're like, this is not going to happen.
no.
I think
And they
that's
don't need an easy life. Like
yeah.
they need to build resilience. Children need
Yes.
resilience. And I think resilience truly is the one strong trait I've had throughout my entire life. It's my golden trait. I truly feel like resilience is my golden trait. And if I could give my daughter 5 traits, resilience would be up there in the top 5, 100%.
Absolutely. I think you've also had several like kind of what would they call them, like inflection points, where you're able to kind of like take inventory and restart, like get rid of the stuff that's not serving you and move forward, and it's so interesting. So Kashia and I created this course on like confidence. We really wanted to understand like what is confidence? What are the fundamentals of confidence? Where does it come from? Can you manufacture your confidence again? Like really sit down and like build it as a toolbox that you can re-access whenever you need. And it was like a spiritual experience. Kashia and I, we would be like up in all hours of the night, like talking about this, going through research, going through um, you like the foundations of the words, the etymology. And what we settled on was like confidence is your ability to get rid of past fixation, future anxiety. Like all depression comes from being too locked into your past, whether it's trauma, things you've done, guilt, shame, and then anxiety comes from being so locked into your future, where it's like, I have this pressure, I have to meet this deadline, I have these responsibilities. That actual confidence and self trust comes from being able to empty out that laundry basket, right? And let go of all this
100%.
past and future pressure, trauma, baggage, and literally be like, what am I right now? What do I
Yeah.
have right now? Where are my tools right now? I got this resilience. That's cool. I can use that. I had this substance abuse. No, I'm going to let go of that. That's in the past, and that depressed me. And being able to use that as a toolbox to move forward and people can sense that. They pick it up as confidence, where it's like, oh,
Of course.
that
Yeah.
person is not hindered by their past or their future. That is a person that's right here with me.
One
And
of
I
my
think
favorite
that's a great
quotes
example of
is
that.
one of my favorite quotes is may the bridges I burn light the way. And I
Mm.
love that quote because it's more about the bridges I've burned within myself
Yes. People are like,
and
wait, don't ever
stepping
burn
in.
bridges. And it's like, no, this has nothing to do with other people.
No, it's about
Yeah.
me. I'm in
Yeah.
competition with no one but me and
Yes.
who I have been and how I've boxed myself in my own mind. And, even like June 1st, when I started this path with TFR, like I finally just woke up one day and I'm like, okay, I'm done. I'm done. I'm going to
Yeah.
start something. I don't know what it is,
Yeah.
but
There's something here, though. Yeah.
something's here and I'm going to follow this path and this is what
Mm.
I'm going to do. And stepping out on that path, the bridge I burned was my self doubt.
Yeah.
So I love that quote. And it's not about other people.
It isn't. And I think that that's something we try to illuminate so much in our community is that, I think when we are young and we're told to, oh, what are you going to be when you grow up? Or like, what's the career path? What are you putting on your resume? And like, we are so taught explicitly or implicitly that our careers have to be these like linear, like what did you build on, and then what skills did you get, and then what was the next step on the ladder that you took. And I don't think that we pay enough attention to like, where were your failures, what did you learn from that? Oh cool, you tried something that wasn't right for you. Great. Like
I've
you
tried
burn
everything.
that bridge. So you know that
Yeah.
maybe you're not in sales, you're not a salesperson, or maybe like you don't want to be an entrepreneur, you want to work in a corporation, whatever it is. Like the experiences that don't fit, don't serve, that you're able to get rid of is arguably more valuable than the things where you're like, it's easy to be like, yeah, that's for me. You walked into that class, that was clear. There's clarity there, right? It's a lot harder sometimes to be like, wait, this isn't working. Okay, it's not working. What do I do? Is it something, do I keep trying to like, maybe there's some value to that experience and grit of like trying to push through something, but like being able to discard what you're like, no, that genuinely isn't for me, doesn't serve me, and I won't include it in my path moving forward is so valuable. And we are just constantly trying to illuminate that, like your career path. I mean, maybe out of hundreds of interviews we've done, maybe one or two that have been like borderline linear, but even then the opportunities weren't linear at all, you
Yeah.
know? I love that. Tell me a little bit more about, because we really like to shed light on those teen years. And I think it's so important to highlight the experience of somebody that struggled during that time. And I think that the emotional experience of a teenager that's having a hard time um, is just important to understand. Could you share with us like what, when you were acting out, having problems with the law, like not connecting to school, where later then you're like, oh, this school is my ticket out. It seems like at first you were kind of using the behavior as like an escape, and then you realize, oh, the actual escape is my academics, is school, is college, is sports, all these things that actually like work for me. Can you explain kind of just like your emotional state as a teenager when you were having harder times?
Yeah, I feel like I felt very hopeless. I felt very trapped. I felt I didn't have any direction. And I felt very alone, which I feel like is pretty common. You're going through so many changes in life. And, I was a bully. I had been bullied, on both sides. Um, and I acted out basically as a cry for help.
Mhm.
Truly, that's what I think it was, is just like wanting attention and, you know, drawing it in the wrong way. Um, and it was hard times. And I think I was just trying to push the limit, push the boundary, push the boundary. And I am one of those types of people where, if my mom would tell me, like, don't touch that, you will get burned. I want to see how it feels to get
Yeah,
burned, to
I still
see
do
if
that.
that's something I don't want to do or I want to do. That's I'm
Yeah,
going
I'm
to
like, oh, you
decide.
feel strongly about that. Like, oh
Yeah.
my Lord, like let's get in there. I want to understand it.
Yeah. So I think like those two things paired just were like a recipe for
Mhm.
a very tumultuous middle school, high school, and then, like the hormonal aspect. We're going through puberty at that time. So
Yeah.
it was just a really, really hard time for me. And I think if you were to like interview anyone who was around me that at that time, like they'd be like, like most likely to end up in jail or something. You know what I mean? But in high school, from freshman year, now like fast forward to senior year, I won most changed since freshman year. And if you
Wow.
look at the side by side, I actually have the yearbook photo where it's
Mm.
like, you look at me in my freshman year, I look just so like deflated, I would say. And then my senior year, I look like proud. You know what I
We
mean?
need
And
to get
it's,
that photo. Can we post it?
of
I
course, I
feel
can
like
get it from my
it's so
mom.
cool. Yes.
Yeah. And it's like the work that I did on myself from freshman year to senior year, just like my own personal work, like going home, not doing anything socially, studying. School didn't come easy for me. I had to work really hard at it. But I worked really hard, not only at school, but like on myself, like my
Yeah.
confidence, my connection with myself. Also, just like being okay with not being liked,
Mhm.
and not connecting with others. At that time, I was not popular in high school at all, understandably, because like the girls who went to middle school with me were like, that girl's a lunatic. I'm going to stay away from her, you know? So,
Well, and like other kids, they don't see, I mean, I think as a mother and having kids too, I have obviously you don't ever want your kid to be on the receiving end of a bully, but I think even just understanding childhood a little bit more now, it's like the bullies are the ones that are hurting the most. I have so much compassion for kids that are acting out.
they're
And
hurting
it's
the
like, no,
most, and you don't know what's happening at home. You
yeah,
know what I mean? Like, where did they learn that from? You
yeah.
know? So, like,
Or even
that's
like
something to consider.
even like the behavior sometimes is not even something that they are seeing at home. Like behaviors
Yeah.
just come out of like emotions, anxiety, like chemical imbalances,
Yeah. Yeah.
neurodiversity, like all sorts of sources can be
So
the
many
cause of
things.
behavior like that. And I think
Yeah.
it's just such an indication of pain in whatever way. But as kids, they see a kid acting like that and they're like, we're not going to be friends. That's a bad kid. And now I'm like, I don't know if you follow Dr. Becky, but I love
Oh,
her.
yeah.
And I
I
literally
love
threw her
her.
head a million times is like, you're a good kid having a hard time. You're a good kid
And
having
I
a hard time.
was.
And
I
I
was
literally
a
told
good kid.
myself as a mom, I'm like, you're a good mom having a hard
Yeah,
time,
and
you know?
true. But like at my core, in those hard years, maybe where I was like this tough girl who was getting in trouble, I was so broken inside. I
Mm,
was so helpless. At times, I felt like, why am I on this earth? Like, I just felt so broken and I was in so much pain. I didn't have a regulated nervous system. And, you know, it was really, really, really hard for me. And I'm so happy that I continued to show up for myself. And like sports really
yeah,
helped me. If I hadn't had sports, I don't know where I would be truly, because
yeah,
having that check in to move my body, work through whatever energy was stored in my body, tension, self doubt, build confidence. I built so much confidence on the soccer field, and to see something tangible that if I put the time in and work hard at this, I can excel. Now let me apply
yes.
that to other areas of my life.
Mm. So it sounds like between sports and your adopted dad, creating structure for you and kind of like, again, eliminating some of the noise, like eliminate, okay, clearly like the social stuff is complicated now because of where I've been and what I've been doing. So I'm going to silence that for a minute and like kind of go inward and like, let's be friends with ourselves first before we're going out and trying to like figure out where we fit socially. But like that, so like having that outlet of sports and then academics, as you continued, seems
Yeah,
like
and
it
my
was just a
mom's
huge
love
turning
was
point.
just,
Mm.
my mom told me she loved me every day,
Yeah.
multiple times a day. She was so affectionate to me. So, like, I never felt that lack of love, which
Yes.
was, that unconditional love. So, like, even that in and of itself is worth its weight in gold. Like,
Yeah.
that I've carried with me throughout my whole life, and it's always given me strength. But yeah,
I think that that foundation of love, even if it's like you look back and you're like, oh, that was more of like a, she wanted to be my friend kind of love, which you're like, that could be adjusted a little bit as a mom. But when you think about it, like having any kind of that unconditional love, I think is the foundation for a child or even an adult to change, or to be able to be like, have the freedom to be like, I can change my identity. I can change the path
yes.
I'm on. I think that love creates an environment for someone to have the freedom to adapt, change, and grow.
Yeah.
So I think it is really important to like acknowledge that it's like you had that unconditional love.
Yeah.
So now not only were you able to change your own path, but now, as a mother, you're changing the trajectory of generations to come in your family.
Yeah, and you just said something that kind of just like brought a thought to my mind where it's like I think for me my like superpower has always been that inflection point that you talked about where it's like
Hmm.
I'm done with this. Like so in middle school, I'm done being this person. I'm going to focus all of my energy and intention on being this person. I want, I want to be the girl who's kind and outgoing and work hard. And I want to do great in school and be good at sports. And it's really just showing up in each moment and deciding to be that person. And again, not letting the past hold on to you. It's like a complete pivot. And I really think that those points in my life, whether they were in middle school or now in my 30s, have always been really powerful for me.
So I feel like it's so fascinating because then you went to college, and since then you have, I mean, you really have a lot of different skills and you've worn a lot of different hats. I feel like we haven't even touched on like what an incredible chef you are. Can you like nutshell explain some of the things that you tried after college once you kind of
Oh my
made this,
God.
gave
Of
yourself the
course.
permission to start trying things and reinventing yourself?
I've tried everything. I've been a nanny, I've worked in call centers, I've worked for an interior design firm, I've worked as a personal trainer, a yoga instructor, a house manager, a personal assistant. I've at restaurants, retail, I've tried everything. And I think that's really important to try as many things as possible. And when you figure out it's not working for you, pivot.
Yes.
Maybe find another
Flash in the
job
pan.
before
Yeah.
you pivot, but pivot and
Well,
try
I
things
think like
because you
pivot.
learn new skills.
But I think that's such a critical component that you're mentioning is that it's like it's not just pivot, like run away from the thing that's not working for you. It's like take inventory. What worked? I I worked in finance for a period of time and didn't love a lot of it, but I will always remember a girl that was training me. She would have me like be on the calls, and I was so nervous because like these are like big multi-million dollar clients, and I'm like in my first week, why are you putting me on the phone? But she's like, you got to learn somehow, and she put me on the phone, and then I'd hang up and she'd listen in the whole time, and then she'd look at me and she goes, what worked, what didn't, and why? And I'm like, that's such a great phrase for anything to just reflect what worked, because there's usually always something that kind of worked that you can keep. What didn't? Why didn't it work? Okay,
Yep.
move on. And just to take that like mindful moment to then like, okay, well, as you're making your next decision or trying your next thing, you are bringing information and learning into your next experience, which I think you are just so good at.
Yeah. And, you learn new skills with
Yeah.
each new job, truly. Like, I've taken something from everything. And I think like the string that ties everything together is like production. Truly. Like I'm a producer. So whatever, like wherever you're gonna put me, I'm gonna produce something.
Yeah.
I'm creative, I'm organized, I'm, outgoing, I'm a people person. And yeah, so eventually like I got really into food and I did like a small little program at Matthew Kinney. It was like a workshop and we met at the Malibu Yoga Shala.
That's right.
And
I was thinking, I was like, God, where did we meet again? Because I'm like, I feel like our lives have crossed in so many paths. And I was like trying to figure out like, what was the first meeting, and it was at that yoga event.
yeah, and I was assisting the
Yes.
catering. And from that point, I'm like, I'm going to do this. I really enjoy it. I really enjoy
Yeah.
cooking. I really enjoy the community aspect. I really enjoy the art of plating and presenting. And I really enjoy the feeling I get of presenting a meal that everyone's going to enjoy. It just makes me feel so connected and proud. And so I started my business, which was Nourish Renew. And, you brought that wonderful opportunity to me to work with Aloe Yoga. And it was wonderful. I mean, I worked with Aloe like 3 times a week, which was such a
Yeah.
blessing. And then I expanded on that. And I'm like, this is marrying everything that I've been good at for my whole life, basically
Well, I
sports,
think that's like that
movement.
patience. It all kind of comes to, and I think it's hard when you're like doing that fast forward failing of like, no, okay, keep trying, do something different. It can sometimes feel very like I am all over the place. I
Yeah.
can't tell you how many times I've had that self-talk of like, I am just crazy. Like I can't stop trying things. Like it just calm my curiosity down a little bit. But then it's like, okay, but then you take inventory and it's like you don't know exactly. You take the skill. You don't know how it's going to weave into what you're doing at a future point, and it's usually not in the way you expected. But like it's so cool once you've done that a lot to kind of see like, oh, like that's where this thing is playing in and this skill that I got. Oh, and then it all starts like weaving together in what you're doing. And even just like the metaphor so beautiful of like your joy in cooking and serving. It's like you're taking the ingredients before you, the things that you have, your inventory, right? You're putting it together in your own unique way that is you, filled with your heart and your passion and everything. And then you're using it to serve. Like you have this thread through everything you've done of like taking the things, putting them together beautifully and using them to serve others. And I think that's such a cool thing to like look at your life and be like, wow, actually I've been doing this same thing in a million different roles. And that's why I'm good at it. So I feel like we usually end every episode with the same question. I feel like you've kind of answered it proactively just by arriving there. But we always ask, what was a personality trait or characteristic that you always had, something you had when you were young that maybe you didn't appreciate then or acknowledge that you love in yourself now?
Resilience and my ability to manifest, I guess, like, to focus energy on the future, or just like kind of like creating the woman I want to be. I'm always kind of checking in with myself and thinking, taking inventory of myself. Like you said, what's working, what's not working, what's serving me, what's serving others, and how can I change? How can I better myself? And how can I let go of maybe failures or disappointments that I've had in myself in the past? Whether it be like how substances affected my ability to connect with people up until I quit substances, right? I'm letting go of that. I'm letting go of every past version of myself because that person doesn't exist anymore. What exists is who I am today and who I'm going to be in the future. And I want to keep working towards that.
I think that's so beautiful. Moni, this has been such a great conversation. I just so value you and your ability to articulate yourself and your self-awareness, and you're just conscious of so much about yourself, your experience, and the people around you. So thank you for joining us today and for sharing your story.
Thank you so much for having me. Honestly, it's such an honor and a full circle moment for our friendship, truly.
It is. Where can people find you if they want to work with your agency, if they want to come to one of your classes? How can people reach you?
Yeah, so my Instagram is Moni, Monii Walsh, Walsh. And my TikTok is also the same, MoniiWalsh. Those are the best places to find me. You can DM me, you can email me, my email's in my bio. And, my focus on my social media is just impact, positive impact, mindset, motivation, and that's my purpose.
I love it. Thank you, Moni. Can't wait to
Thank
see
you
you again
so
soon.
much.
And that's our show. If you liked what you heard today, please like, subscribe to, follow, and share Meet Bridget with your circle. The best way to help our work here is to rate and review our podcast. We're listening and constantly working to build something helpful for you. Catch you next time.
Bring it on, baby.